According from the Child Welfare Information Getaway from July 2013, it stated that in the year 2011, there were 677,000 cases of child abuse. Child abuse is something that makes a lot of people very angry. When a child is a victim of child abuse or neglect, it will affect them in many different ways for a long period of time. Child abuse affects families worldwide because child abuse can play a detrimental role of a child's life, causing them to have physical, emotional, and behavioral problems in their lives as they continue to grow. Child abuse is a growing problem, and I'm going to talk to you about the different types of child abuse, the long-term consequences from it, and the warning signs. First, I'm going to begin with the different types of child abuse and neglect. First type is physical abuse. This is when there's any harm or physical injury to the child. Another type of abuse is emotional abuse, which can be any form of calling the child a name, humiliating the child, or even ignoring the child. When a child has emotional abuse, it can damage the child's mental health and social development. Another type of abuse is sexual abuse. It doesn't always have to be physical contact. Sexual abuse can also be when the child is in a sexual situation or there's sexual material that is very abusive. As Dr. Melinda Smith put it, sexually abused children are tormented by shame and guilt. They may feel that they are responsible for the abuse or somehow brought it up upon themselves. This can lead to self-loathing and sexual problems as they grow older, often either excessive promiscuity or an inability to have intimate relations. Another type of abuse is when a child is neglected. This is when the parent or the caretaker fails to provide the basic needs for the child, such as adequate clothing, food, hygiene, and sometimes lack of supervision. The next point I'd like to make is child abuse and neglect isn't just a short-term problem. It has long-term consequences as well. Medline Plus includes information on child abuse that states most abused children suffer greater emotional than physical damage. An abused child may become depressed, he or she may withdraw, may commit suicide, or even become violent. An older child that is abused may use drugs or alcohol, or try to run away or abuse others. Some physical health consequences that child abuse can have on kids is minor or severe effects, such as cuts, bruises, broken bones, hemorrhage, and even possibly death. According to the Child Welfare Information Getaway from July 2013, abusive head trauma is the most common cause of traumatic death in infants. 1 in every 4 victims of shaken baby syndrome dies, and nearly all victims experience serious health consequences. Impaired brain development is another physical consequence, which is when certain regions of the brain fail to grow properly, and this can lead to cognitive development, academic abilities, and language problems. Some psychological consequences from child abuse is that it has immediate emotional effects. When a child is abused, their immediate emotional effects could be fear, the inability to trust, and isolation, which can lead to long-term emotional effects such as depression, relationship difficulties, low self-esteem. Children who are sexually or physically assaulted have higher risk for depression, anxiety, personality disorders, and other psychiatry disorders. In the article Child Welfare Information Getaway from July 2013, they stated one study using ACE data found that roughly 54% cases of depression and 58% of suicide attempts in women were connected to adverse childhood experiences. Another long-term consequence of child abuse is behavioral consequences, which can lead to difficulties during adolescence, juvenile delinquency, and adult criminality, alcohol and drug abuse, and abusive behavior. Some kids that are abused behave by acting out, which could be poor in school, getting into drugs, and starting to have sexual relations. Some studies suggest that children who are abused are at a higher risk to engage in sexual risk-taking as they reach adolescence. This can then include to increase pregnancy in teenagers and also sexually transmitted diseases. In addition, I'd like to inform everyone of the warning signs of child abuse. Safe Horizons 10 Signs of Child Abuse explains some signs of child abuse are unexplained injuries, changes in behavior, changes in sleeping or eating, fear of going home, and changes in school performances, lack of hygiene, and inappropriate sexual behaviors. The Defining and Recognizing Child Abuse website includes information about physical and behavioral indicators. Some physical indicators of physical abuse can be welts, lacerations to the mouth or lips, burns from scalding water, immersion, or cigarettes, and rope burns. Some behavioral indicators could be suicide attempts, clothing in inappropriate weather, and manifestation of low self-esteem. Sexual abuse physical indicators could be difficulty walking, an STD appearing up, or pain or itching in the genital areas. Behavioral indicator of a child that has been sexually abused could be poor peer relationships, prostitution, or extreme fear of being touched. Some physical indicators of emotional abuse include bedwetting, frequent psychosomatic complaints, headaches, nausea, and abdominal pains, whereas some behavioral indicators could be mental or emotional lags, mood swings, severe depression, or runaway attempts. When a child is neglected, you'll notice some physical indicators such as speech disorders, failure to thrive, and abandonment. And some behavioral indicators would be habit disorder, stealing food, or alcohol and drug abuse. In conclusion, there's all different types of child abuse regarding from humiliation to sexually being abused. This affects the child tremendously, and more than likely the child will have long-term effects that they will struggle with for the rest of their lives. Therefore, it is important to know the warning signs of child abuse. Child abuse affects families worldwide because child abuse can play a detrimental role of a child's life, causing them to have physical, emotional, and behavioral problems in their lives as they continue to grow. In a statistic I found on childhelp.org, the United States has one of the worst records among industrialized nations, losing an average between 4 to 7 children every day to child abuse and neglect. Child abuse will always be an ongoing issue unless we stop it.